The Power of When, discover your chronotype and the best time to eat lunch, ask for a raise, have sex, write a novel, take your meds, and more. Written by Dr. Michael Breus. Summarized by Detailed Book Summaries. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Chapter 1. What's your chronotype? Have you ever had that nagging feeling like you're living out of sync with the rest of the world? Like you're always chasing energy you can never quite catch, or dragging your feet when everyone else seems fired up and ready to go? Maybe you blamed yourself. Maybe you've told yourself to get it together, or try harder. But what if the problem isn't your discipline? What if it's your timing? Dr. Michael Breus begins this journey with a simple but revolutionary idea. It's not just what you do that matters, it's when you do it. And that timing? It's hardwired into your biology. You see, each of us has a natural internal rhythm that governs everything from when we wake up to when we're most productive, creative, hungry, or emotionally open. That internal rhythm is called a chronotype, and learning yours might just be the single most important step you ever take toward optimizing your life. Now, chances are, you've heard about morning people and night owls. That's not new. But Breus turns this simple binary into a deeper, richer framework, one that offers a powerful lens through which to understand your entire life. He introduces not two, but four unique chronotypes: lions, bears, wolves, and dolphins. Each represents a different biological rhythm. Each has its own strengths, struggles, and secret windows of optimal performance. And the beauty of this system? It's backed by decades of sleep science, clinical research, and genetics. So let's take a quick stroll through this new cast of characters. First, the lions. These are the early risers, the folks who leap out of bed with energy and direction at the crack of dawn. Lions tend to be driven, proactive, and well-organized. Their power hours are in the morning, but by evening, they're fading fast. Ever met someone who starts yawning by 8:30 p.m. and actually enjoys waking up before sunrise? That's probably a lion. Society tends to admire lions. They fit into the early bird catches the worm narrative quite nicely. But what people don't see is how much lions often struggle with social isolation or burnout when the world wants them to be on in the evenings. Next up, the bears. This is the most common chronotype, making up about half the population. Bears rise and fall with the sun, typically waking around 7 a.m. and hitting peak productivity mid-morning to early afternoon. Bears are steady, dependable, and generally well-adjusted. They do best when they follow a conventional schedule, and most of society is built to accommodate them. If you've ever felt like a 9-to-5 routine mostly works for you, but you still have ups and downs in energy, you're probably a bear. They're the rhythm keepers of the world. Then we have the wolves, the night owls. Wolves don't come alive until the rest of the world starts winding down. They're creative, introspective, emotionally intense, and often misunderstood. Wolves struggle to conform to the traditional morning-heavy schedule, and many spend their lives being labeled lazy or unreliable. Not because they don't care, but because their biology simply doesn't match society's timetable. If you've ever felt like your mind is sharpest after 6 p.m., or that you need multiple alarms and caffeine just to function in the morning, this might be you. And there's nothing wrong with that. You're just living in a lion's world with a wolf's clock. Finally, the dolphins, the rarest and most complex of all chronotypes. Dolphins are light sleepers. Their minds are constantly buzzing. They're often anxious, easily disturbed at night, and never quite feel rested. They tend to be high-achieving perfectionists with incredible attention to detail. But that intensity comes at a price. Their energy fluctuates unpredictably throughout the day. If you've ever had trouble falling asleep despite being exhausted, or found yourself wide awake at 3 a.m. with your mind racing, you may be a dolphin. They thrive in short bursts and often have brilliant ideas at off hours. Now here's where it gets fascinating. Breus explains that our chronotype isn't a matter of preference, it's a biological reality. It's influenced by the length of our internal circadian rhythm and the expression of the PR3 gene, which impacts the timing of melatonin release and other hormonal cycles. In other words, this isn't just a mindset, it's molecular. You can't simply will yourself into being a morning person if your brain is wired for midnight magic. And yet, most of us spend our lives trying to force ourselves into schedules that don't match who we are. Breus calls this phenomenon social jet lag, a perpetual state of being out of sync with your internal time zone. Imagine the exhaustion of flying from New York to Paris every day and never adjusting. That's what many people experience every single week, just trying to live up to the demands of a standardized schedule. The result? Fatigue, fogginess, poor performance, irritability, even long-term health problems. The sad truth is that our modern systems, schools, workplaces, social expectations, are built mostly for lions and bears. They reward early risers and penalize late bloomers. Wolves and dolphins often find themselves misjudged, overlooked, or labeled as difficult, when in reality, they're just being who they are. This misalignment can make people question their worth. You might wonder, why can't I be more disciplined? Or, why do I crash after lunch every day? The answer might not lie in effort, but in biology. And once you begin to see yourself through the lens of your chronotype, it all starts to make sense. Breus assures us that there's no better chronotype. Each has its strengths and blind spots. Lions are great leaders in the early hours, but may lack stamina for late-night socializing. Bears are consistent but may struggle to innovate. Wolves are deeply creative, but often wrestle with routine. Dolphins are insightful, but need careful management of their mental and physical energy. And here's the breakthrough. Once you know your chronotype, you can stop fighting your biology and start timing your life for success. Want to lose weight? There's a best time to eat based on your chronotype. Want to boost your creativity? There's a time when your brain is primed for that. Want to deepen your relationships, ace an interview, crush a workout, or get better sleep? There's a best time for each of those things too. And that, when, differs from person to person. The rest of the book lays out those specific, actionable windows for each chronotype. But this first chapter? This is where the curtain lifts. It's where you start to understand that your struggles aren't character flaws. They're timing mismatches. You're not broken. You're just mistimed. And that changes everything. As we close out this chapter, here are a few big questions to reflect on. What if everything you've been told about productivity and success is only partially true? What if your bad habits are just signs that your schedule doesn't match your biology? What could your life look like if you finally stopped resisting your rhythm and started riding its wave? The answer might surprise you. Or better yet, it might free you. Next, we'll dive into the first chronotype in detail, dolphins, and explore what a perfect day in their life looks like. This chapter is especially for those who've always felt like the world just doesn't fit their mind. So if you've ever struggled with sleep, anxiety, or feeling different, stick with me. The pieces are about to come together. Chapter 2. A perfect day in the life of a dolphin. Have you ever lain awake at night, exhausted yet unable to sleep? Maybe your body is begging for rest, but your brain? It's wide awake, looping through yesterday's conversations, tomorrow's to-do list, random memories from childhood, or sudden existential questions about life. And even when you do manage to sleep, it's light, fragmented, and far from refreshing. If this sounds familiar, you might just be a dolphin, and if you are, welcome. You've just discovered that there's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. You're simply living out of sync with your biology. And that ends today. Dr. Michael Breus calls dolphins the insomniacs of the chronotype world, not because they don't need sleep, but because sleep seems to dodge them no matter how hard they chase it. Dolphins tend to be light sleepers, hyper-aware, sharp, often anxious, and constantly exhausted. Their minds are always on, even when their bodies are crying out for stillness. And yet, despite this turbulent relationship with rest, dolphins are often high performers. Intelligent, detail-oriented, driven. They're the ones who can't stop tweaking, perfecting, adjusting, and analyzing. It's not that they want to be this way. It's just the way they're wired. A typical dolphin wakes not with energy but with fatigue. They're often awake before the alarm sounds, not because they're ready, but because they never quite reach deep sleep to begin with. Their nights are filled with micro wake-ups, dreams that feel half real, and an undercurrent of worry that hums just beneath the surface. When the day begins, they're already behind. Not mentally, because dolphins are brilliant, but physically, emotionally, and energetically. That's why their mornings must begin gently. Breus suggests avoiding harsh alarms. Instead, dolphins should use light-based wake-up tools, a dawn simulator, or soft lighting that gradually brightens. Bright natural light is essential. It helps reset their circadian rhythm and tells the body, "This is morning now." A glass of water should be the first thing they consume. No coffee yet. Their cortisol levels, the stress hormone that helps us wake up, are already elevated in the morning. Adding caffeine to that chemical cocktail can make them shaky, irritable, or overly anxious. What dolphins need is movement. Not an intense workout, just gentle yoga, a slow walk, a stretch. They need to coax their bodies into wakefulness, not jolt themselves into action. By mid-morning, something remarkable happens. Between 10 a.m. and noon, dolphins begin to shine. Their brains, finally freed from the fog, snap into high focus. This is their sweet spot for doing deep, analytical, or creative work. If a dolphin has a presentation to prep, a strategy to plan, or a complex problem to solve, this is the time. But the challenge? They need structure. Dolphins have minds that wander easily. They analyze and overanalyze. So Breus advises them to work in short, focused bursts, 90 minutes on, 15 minutes off. This prevents burnout and keeps their brains from spiraling into anxiety-driven perfectionism. There's another piece of advice that's especially valuable for dolphins. Don't make long to-do lists. Their tendency toward detail and self-critique means they often set the bar too high, then feel crushed when they don't meet it. So keep goals simple. Just 1 or 2 high-priority tasks per morning. That's it. Hit those, and the rest is a bonus. Then comes the afternoon, and for dolphins, this is the danger zone. From around 2 to 4 p.m., their energy tanks. The high of late morning fades, and a wave of exhaustion, irritability, or self-doubt creeps in. This is when negative thoughts swirl. Why am I so tired? I didn't get enough done. I should be working harder. But Breus urges dolphins not to fight this slump. Instead, expect it. Embrace it. Use this time for low-stakes, low-brain tasks, email, light reading, or mindless admin work. Even better? Take a break. A short nap, just 15 to 20 minutes, can work wonders. But only if it happens before 3 p.m. Later than that, and it may interfere with nighttime sleep. Breus also recommends physical activity in the afternoon, especially outdoors. A 20-minute walk in natural light doesn't just stretch the legs, it re-anchors the circadian rhythm. It brings the dolphin back to the body and out of the anxious swirl of thoughts. Even a few minutes of movement can hit the reset button. And then, something unexpected happens again. As evening approaches, around 5 to 7 p.m., the dolphin perks up. Not necessarily physically, but mentally. Their thoughts get clearer. Ideas come more easily. They feel more like themselves. This second wind is a gift, but also a trap. Because this is when dolphins tend to dive into late-night productivity. They might decide to finish that work project, or rearrange the kitchen, or write 3 pages of their novel. They finally feel alive, and they want to make the most of it. But here's the problem. That second wind leads to a late-night surge. It pushes back bedtime. It overactivates the mind. It leads to screen time, stimulation, blue light exposure, and ultimately, another night of broken sleep. The cycle resets. The exhaustion deepens. That's why Breus says the evening routine is everything for dolphins. They need to start winding down around 9 p.m. Even if they're not sleepy. Even if they feel like they could work another hour. The goal isn't to crash, it's to transition. That means dimming lights, shutting off screens, playing soft music, journaling, reading fiction, taking a warm, not hot bath, even sipping chamomile or valerian root tea. These rituals tell the brain, we're done for today. You're safe now. Let go. And when it's finally time to sleep, dolphins must make peace with imperfection. Their sleep might not be long, or deep, or uninterrupted. But consistency is key. Going to bed at the same time every night, even if sleep doesn't come easily, helps train the brain to expect rest. Over time, the body learns. It adapts. It heals. Now let's step back and look at the emotional life of a dolphin. Breus points out something profound here. Dolphins often carry an invisible weight. They're constantly on, constantly striving, constantly worried they're not doing enough. They're the perfectionists who double-check everything, not because they want to, but because they have to. It's how they feel in control. But this vigilance has a cost. Dolphins are prone to anxiety, imposter syndrome, and chronic self-doubt. That's why a perfect day for a dolphin isn't about checking every box. It's about building a schedule that protects their mind. A schedule that makes room for softness, stillness, and grace. So what does that day look like? It starts with a soft wake-up around 6:30 or 7 a.m., followed by light exposure and gentle movement. No caffeine yet. Mid-morning is for high-focus work. No distractions, just 1 or 2 priorities. The early afternoon is for admin and rest. A short walk. A power nap. By evening, creativity and light exercise take the stage. But the second wind is watched carefully, channeled but not overindulged. And by 9 p.m., the rituals begin. Lights down, music on, thoughts slowed. The dolphin begins to float. Not to fight. Not to chase. Just to float. And with time, their body relearns the rhythm it was always meant to follow. Dolphins are proof that success isn't about intensity, it's about alignment. They don't need to grind harder or sleep more. They need to sleep smarter, live smarter, work with the rhythm instead of against it. And that's the quiet, powerful truth of this chapter. When a dolphin finally stops trying to be a bear or a lion, when they stop shaming themselves for being different, they don't just sleep better, they become better. Not by changing who they are, but by embracing who they were always meant to be. Next, Chapter 3, A Perfect Day in the Life of a Lion. Imagine waking up just before the sun cracks over the horizon, not with an alarm, not with a groan, but with a sense of calm purpose, as if your mind knows the day is ready for you and not the other way around. There's no rush, no panic. You rise with quiet confidence, stretch as the first soft light of morning filters through your window, and feel completely awake before most of the world has even stirred. That's the life of a lion, the early riser, the natural leader of the Chronotype kingdom. For the lion, mornings are a kind of magic. Unlike dolphins who struggle to fall asleep, or wolves who can barely open their eyes before 10 a.m., lions are up and alert by 5:30 or 6 a.m., not because they have to be, but because that's when their internal clock nudges them awake. Their cortisol levels spike earlier than others, flooding them with a crisp alertness and focus that feels like standing in the eye of a quiet, productive storm. Dr. Michael Breus describes lions as disciplined, practical, and achievement-driven. They are the people who schedule their lives with precision, plan ahead for every possibility, and genuinely enjoy a sense of order and control. They tend to be optimistic, self-reliant, and consistent. These are the early morning gym goers, the "I've already answered all my emails by 8 a.m. types, the ones who can make progress while the world sleeps. And while that might sound enviable, lions don't have it all easy. Their challenge isn't in starting strong, it's in finishing with peace. The lion's ideal day begins with stillness. Upon waking, ideally without an alarm, they hydrate immediately. A tall glass of water gets their system moving and helps recalibrate after hours without fluids. Breus recommends they take in as much natural light as possible, even stepping outside if weather allows. Sunlight, after all, is the brain's cue that it's go time, and for a lion, there's no sense delaying it. From here, 6:30 to 7:30 a.m. is the lion's perfect window for physical exercise. Their body temperature, muscle function, and hormonal levels are all primed for movement. Whether it's strength training, a run, or a brisk walk, this early workout helps regulate their mood and sets the pace for a structured day. But it's not about adrenaline or chaos, it's about rhythm. Lions crave calm, steady control. So the workout, like everything else in their life, tends to be planned, timed, and efficient. Once the body is energized, it's time to feed it. A high-protein breakfast, something like eggs, lean meats, or yogurt with nuts, is ideal. Avoiding sugar and refined carbs helps maintain the lion's steady energy curve. Breus cautions that lions, eager to get moving, sometimes skip breakfast. But doing so short-circuits their fuel supply for the long haul. Lions burn bright in the morning, but if they burn too fast, they're toast by early afternoon. The morning work block, from around 8 to 11 a.m., is sacred for lions. This is their peak. While others are booting up their brains, lions are already at cruising altitude. If there's a report to write, a strategy to create, or a decision to make, this is the window. Deep focus. High-stakes thinking. Creative breakthroughs. Lions don't just function here, they excel. Their brain is wired for early precision, and they move through complex challenges like a hot knife through butter. But then comes the subtle shift. Around 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m., lions begin to fade, slowly at first, then more noticeably. Their high-performance engine has run hot for 6 straight hours, and their cognitive fuel tank is nearing empty. This is when Breus recommends transitioning into low-stakes tasks, emails, admin work, checklists, things that don't require firepower. It's not about slowing down, it's about optimizing what kind of energy remains. After lunch, things get trickier. The afternoon slump hits lions hard. Between 1:30 and 3:30 p.m., the once vibrant lion might feel foggy, drowsy, or mentally scattered. It's not failure, it's physiology. Their core body temperature dips, their brain releases melatonin-like chemicals, and their alertness drops. Most lions try to power through. Breus, however, suggests the opposite. Lean into the slowdown. Take a power nap, just 20 to 25 minutes. Or, if napping isn't realistic, use this time for a walk, light reading, or even simple errands. The key is to avoid pushing through with high-effort tasks. That only depletes more energy and leads to irritability or burnout later. By 4 p.m., the lion's second wind may appear. It's not as sharp as the morning burst, but it's steady. Good for follow-ups, scheduling, reflecting, or mentoring others. Lions are natural leaders, and this quieter phase of the day is perfect for coaching, reviewing goals, or supporting their teams. While their strategic brain may have dimmed slightly, their social-emotional clarity often shines here. And then comes the evening. This is where the lion hits the wall. By 6 o'clock or 6:30 p.m., fatigue sets in. They've been on since sunrise, and now they're ready to wind down. But the world often wants more: dinners, socializing, late-night shows, spontaneous hangouts. For the lion, these moments can feel exhausting, even overwhelming. They may smile, nod, try to stay engaged, but inside, their energy is draining like a bathtub without a stopper. Breus urges lions to respect this need for early quiet. Dinner should happen around 6:30 p.m., light and lean, with no caffeine or alcohol. These substances mess with lions' fragile evening wind-down process. The lights in the house should start dimming by 8 p.m., and screens should shut off soon after. Instead, lions should lean into calming rituals: a book, a gratitude journal, calming music, or simply a warm shower. These things tell the body and mind, it's okay to stop. By 9 p.m., the lion is ready for sleep, and more than that, their body demands it. This is when melatonin production is peaking, and when the lion's brain naturally detaches from the stressors of the day. They fall asleep quickly and usually sleep well, assuming they haven't overexerted themselves emotionally or stayed up out of obligation. When lions honor their rhythm, they wake rested and clear. When they don't, they stumble through the next day, dragging a heavy sense of disconnection behind them. Emotionally, lions often walk a lonely road. Their strengths, discipline, punctuality, decisiveness, can create distance between them and others. They may feel frustrated when others aren't as structured, or hurt when friends expect them to rally late into the night. Over time, they can withdraw, not out of arrogance, but exhaustion. Breus reminds us that lions need permission to live differently, to say no, to rest early, to lead without burning out. So what does a perfect lion's day really look like? It starts in stillness, peaks in structure, softens in service, and ends in surrender. A day designed not just to get things done, but to get things done when they work best. Lions don't need to change who they are. They simply need to protect the rhythms that make them powerful. And when they do, they don't just lead well. They live well. Next, we'll meet the bear, the chronotype that represents the majority of the population. Bears are the heartbeat of the world, in sync with the sun and deeply grounded in the present. If you've ever wondered why a 9-to-5 schedule feels both natural and frustrating, you might just find yourself there. Chapter 4. A perfect day in the life of a bear. You wake up slowly. Not jarringly. Not from an aggressive alarm or because something's wrong, but because your body says, it's time. It's somewhere around 7 a.m., and the light is starting to nudge its way through the curtains. There's a calmness in this kind of morning. Not too early, not too late. You stretch, rub the sleep from your eyes, and feel okay. Not brilliant. Not sluggish. Just steady. That, right there, is the essence of a bear. Bears, as Dr. Michael Breus explains, are the biological majority. Over half the population falls into this category, which means if the world were designed around any one chronotype, it would be this one. Office hours. School start times. Grocery store hours. Social expectations. They all bend to the bear's natural rhythm, because this rhythm is the most common. But just because something is common doesn't mean it's simple. Being a bear is a dance between doing and resting, between social obligation and personal rhythm. And it's one that needs care. Bears are the easygoing doers. They're sociable, grounded, and likable. They're not early bird overachievers like lions or night owl artists like wolves. They're the glue between extremes, balanced, rhythmic, and in sync with the sun. When bears live in harmony with their chronobiology, they feel like they're flowing, not fighting. But the moment they push beyond their internal clock, it shows in grogginess, irritability, and the slow creep of burnout. Bears burn out not in flames, but in silence. Their day should begin gently. Light is their first signal. A splash of natural sunlight first thing, whether it's stepping outside for a few minutes or sitting by a window with a glass of water, helps regulate cortisol levels and starts the bear's internal clock with grace. Hydration is also critical. Bears tend to wake a little dehydrated, a little hazy. One glass of water sets the tone. Coffee can come later, once the system's awake naturally. Bears hit their true stride mid-morning. Between 10 a.m. and noon, something clicks. Their brain sharpens, their conversations deepen, and their creativity peaks. This is their golden zone, where meetings should be booked, writing should get done, ideas should be born. Unlike the lions who hit it hard and early, or the wolves who peak at twilight, bears unfold. They ramp up smoothly, steadily. It's a rise, not a sprint. Emotionally, this is when bears feel most capable. They're alert but not anxious, confident but not cocky. In this space, they thrive in group dynamics, leading meetings, solving problems, working through logistics. It's important, though, not to overload them with clutter. Bears are resilient, yes, but they need order to stay balanced. Too much noise, multitasking, or vague expectations will trigger overwhelm. They do their best work with structure, not chaos. By early afternoon, around 1 p.m., it's time to ease up. The post-lunch slump isn't just a cliché. It's a real dip in the bear's internal rhythm. Their alertness drops, and energy sags. This is where many bears make the mistake of forcing productivity. They push through the fatigue, load up on caffeine, or power through another project. But Breus gently warns against this. What bears actually need is movement, not more work. A 10-minute walk, a few flights of stairs, light stretching. These small resets reignite the body and mind without forcing it into stress mode. Lunch, by the way, should be light and energizing. Bears often eat whatever's fast or convenient, but the wrong kind of food, heavy carbs, deep-fried meals, or sugar intensifies their energy dip. Breus recommends protein-forward options. A salad with grilled meat, a veggie bowl, a wrap with lean filling. Food that fuels rather than sedates. By 3 o'clock or 4 p.m., most bears begin to feel a second wind, not as intense as their mid-morning surge, but steady and useful. This is a great time to wrap up loose ends, reply to emails, or collaborate on low-stakes projects. It's not a moment for reinvention, but for connection and completion. Bears, as social beings, thrive on this subtle community rhythm in the late afternoon. Dinner should arrive before 7:30 p.m. Bears digest slower in the evenings, and heavy meals late at night interrupt their sleep cycles. Lighter meals with vegetables, lean proteins, and minimal sugar are ideal. Alcohol, if they choose it, should be kept in check. It can help them fall asleep faster but dramatically reduces sleep quality, especially deep, restorative sleep. The real magic for bears happens in the evening, not because they're most creative or energized then, but because this is when they're most vulnerable. Bears tend to give, and give all day long. By the time evening arrives, they've often left little for themselves. They check one more email, offer to help with someone else's task, or start thinking about tomorrow before today is even done. This habit steals their wind down. It builds anxiety, delays sleep, and fractures the sense of flow they worked so hard to create. Breus urges bears to protect their evenings like a sacred ritual. After dinner, screens should dim. Phones should go away. Blue light, noise, stimulation, all of it should begin fading from the environment. Instead, bears should lean into grounding routines, light stretching, listening to music, journaling, reading fiction, a bath. These aren't luxuries. They're neurological cues that say, "You are safe. It's okay to stop." And here's the key: bedtime is 10 p.m. Not because it's ideal for society, but because it's ideal for their biology. Go past 10:30, and they'll likely get a second wind that carries them to midnight or beyond. That's the revenge alertness window. The time when your brain starts firing again, just as your body was ready to shut down. The longer a bear ignores that 10 p.m. bedtime, the more it chips away at the rhythm they spent all day building. Sleep for bears is usually solid when it happens on time. They fall asleep relatively easily and sleep deeply when their routine is stable. But when they miss their window, it's not just fatigue that follows, it's fog. Bears don't collapse dramatically like lions. They fade. They slow down. They start dragging emotionally, feeling a little off, a little less like themselves. The problem is subtle, which makes it harder to recognize until it snowballs. Emotionally, bears need affirmation. They're often the quiet supporters, the team players, the helpers. But that generosity makes them prone to neglecting their own needs. They'll say yes too often, stretch too thin, and brush off their own stress for the sake of peace. Over time, this breeds resentment, not against others, but quietly, inwardly. That's why protecting their win is so essential. It's not selfish. It's survival. The bear's perfect day is one that unfolds naturally. Waking with the light. Working when the mind is sharp. Resting when the body dips. Connecting with people, but also disconnecting when needed. It's not glamorous. It's not radical. But it's powerful. Because when a bear lives in harmony with their rhythm, they stop chasing time and start flowing with it. They wake up steady. They work with purpose. They rest without guilt. And when night falls, they slip into sleep not because they're forced, but because they're ready. Truly ready. That's the quiet strength of a bear. And now, we turn our attention to the night dwellers, the wolves, the artists, the rebels, the ones who come alive long after the sun has set, but often feel out of place in a world that worships mornings. If you've ever felt like your creativity doesn't wake up until 9 p.m., you might be a wolf. Let's explore their rhythm next. Chapter 5. A perfect day in the life of a wolf. There's something about the quiet of night that feels like home. When the rest of the world begins to dim its lights, to tuck in, to wind down, you, if you're a wolf, begin to come alive. Not in the wild, hyperactive sense, but in that slow, quiet hum of creativity that builds from somewhere deep within. The stars come out, the distractions of the day fall away, and suddenly you feel your most you. It's not a coincidence. It's not laziness. It's not a failure of will. It's biology. Wolves are the night chronotype, those rare 15 to 20% of the population whose internal clocks are set to run behind the rest of the world. While lions are finishing their second task by sunrise and bears are already responding to emails by 9 a.m., the wolf is still trying to convince their body that being vertical isn't a betrayal of its natural order. It's not that wolves hate mornings, they're just not wired for them. And for years, society has told them that this mismatch makes them irresponsible, scattered, or unmotivated. But Dr. Breus makes it clear, wolves are not broken. They're just misaligned with the clock the world prefers. A perfect day for a wolf does not start with dawn. In fact, mornings are their weakest point. When a wolf is forced to wake before 8 a.m., their brain is still swimming in melatonin, the sleep hormone that lingers longer in their system than in other chronotypes. They feel foggy, slow, disoriented, what Breus calls sleep inertia. So rather than jolting into productivity, wolves should ease into the day with grace. No alarm screaming. No cold showers. Just light. Soft movement. A glass of water. Some music. A moment of stillness. Eating immediately upon waking isn't always appealing to wolves. Their digestive system, like their brain, takes its time to boot up. Breus recommends waiting an hour or two after waking to eat, and when they do, a meal rich in protein and healthy fat is ideal. It's not about energy spikes, it's about fueling the engine slowly, steadily. From morning until early afternoon, wolves remain in a sort of liminal space. They can function, yes, but they're not thriving yet. These are hours best reserved for light work, responding to messages, organizing to-do lists, attending meetings that don't demand too much mental gymnastics. Social interaction should be kept low stakes. Wolves are not their most articulate or emotionally agile during this time. Think of it as the prelude, the quiet tuning of the instruments before the concert begins. And then, sometime around 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, everything changes. The fog lifts. Thoughts become clearer. Ideas arrive more freely. The emotional resistance to effort starts to soften. It's not a surge, it's a shift. Wolves feel it in their chest, in their fingertips, in the rising speed of their thoughts. This is the beginning of their power window. By late afternoon and into the evening, wolves enter what Breus calls their prime zone. From 4 p.m. to around 10 p.m., they are sharp, expressive, and creative. Their mental clarity peaks. Tasks that seemed overwhelming in the morning now feel exciting. For wolves in creative professions, this is the sacred stretch, the hours when the best writing, painting, designing, coding, inventing, or performing happens. For wolves in less flexible jobs, this window can be frustrating because by the time they're at their best, the workday is over. That's why, wherever possible, Breus encourages wolves to claim this time for themselves. Use it for your big projects, the things that light you up. If your job doesn't allow it, then make this window your own in other ways. Pursue your passion project, write your book, develop your side hustle, or simply give your brain the space to think deeply. This is not time to be wasted on chores or small talk. This is you at your finest. And when the sun finally dips below the horizon and most people are calling it a night, wolves are only beginning to feel truly alive. This is their social hour, their connecting hour. The phone calls, the text threads, the long talks, the spontaneous ideas. This is the time they feel most understood by themselves, if not always by others. But there's a trap here. Wolves are prone to chasing their own momentum deep into the night. It starts with, just one more email, or one more episode, and before long, it's 2 a.m., and they're still buzzing with ideas. Breus refers to this as the false second wind, and while it can feel productive, it's dangerous. Wolves who give in to it often find themselves stuck in a loop of erratic sleep, unshakable morning grogginess, and chronic exhaustion. To avoid this spiral, wolves need to build a deliberate off-ramp. Around 10:30 or 11 p.m., they should begin signaling to their bodies that it's time to slow down. Dim the lights. Shut the laptop. Avoid bright screens and stimulating content. Engage in a winding down ritual, meditation, journaling, gentle music, a hot shower. Wolves need at least 30 to 45 minutes of transition to decelerate their brains from high output to rest. The ideal bedtime for a wolf falls between midnight and 12:30 a.m. That might sound late to the rest of the world, but for wolves, it's where sleep actually becomes accessible. Go earlier, and they'll just toss and turn. Wait too long, and their mind will rev back up. Catch the wave at midnight, and they'll sleep deeply, entering REM cycles that aren't just restful but vividly dream-filled. Many wolves report that their best creative ideas emerge just before or just after sleep, as if their subconscious is on a parallel timeline, offering treasures when the world is quiet enough to hear them. Emotionally, wolves live intensely. They feel things in full color. They are often the empaths, the deep thinkers, the ones who absorb the mood of a room without even trying. This makes them both deeply intuitive and easily overwhelmed. Wolves are vulnerable to anxiety and depression, especially when they're forced to conform to rhythms that don't suit them. Waking up early every day, crashing through mornings they're not built for, failing to sleep on time, all of that compounds. Over time, it erodes confidence. It feeds self-judgment. But when a wolf stops apologizing for their difference and starts working with their rhythm instead of against it, something beautiful happens. They stop chasing other people's clocks. They stop trying to mimic the productivity patterns of chronotypes that don't match them. And they start building a life that's deeply, unapologetically tailored to their truest self. The perfect day for a wolf is not an imitation of someone else's success routine. It's an unfolding, slow, rich, powerful. It's a late start with a long fuse. A crescendo of productivity, creativity, and social connection in the hours when the rest of the world is dimming. And a slow, intentional descent into deep, meaningful rest. Wolves don't need fixing. They need freedom, permission, and most of all, they need rhythm, their own rhythm. When they find it, they don't just function better. They come alive. Next, in Chapter 6, Dr. Breus gives you the tools to discover your chronotype if you haven't already. Because while it's helpful to read about lions, bears, wolves, and dolphins, the real magic begins when you finally know which one you are, and begin living like it. Chapter 6. When are you? There's a moment, sometimes quiet and sometimes sudden, when you realize the problem isn't that you're doing things wrong, it's that you're doing them at the wrong time. Not because you're lazy, or broken, or not trying hard enough, but simply because your internal rhythm doesn't match the rhythm of the world around you. And in that moment, something shifts. The weight of self-judgment lifts a little. The guilt begins to melt. And the door opens to a new question, one you may have never asked before. When are you? It's a strange question at first. We're used to asking who we are, what we do, why we do it. But when? When are you most focused? When do you feel most alive? When does your brain light up, your heart relax, your spirit spark? When is your body trying to work with you, not against you? For most people, the answer doesn't come easily, not because it's not there, but because we've spent so long ignoring it. Dr. Michael Breus is on a mission to help you ask and answer that question. Because in asking when, you unlock a world of understanding that changes the way you work, sleep, eat, love, connect, and even heal. We each have a personal clock, set not by society, but by biology, a chronotype. And by now, you've met them, the assertive, rise and grind lions, the balanced, reliable bears, the creative, night-leaning wolves, and the insightful, often anxious dolphins. You might already suspect which one feels most like home. But now it's time to know. This chapter is the pivot point, the shift from theory to self-awareness. It's where you stop reading about other people's rhythms and start discovering your own. Breus walks you to that edge and then gives you the tools to step through. No guesswork. No mystical personality labels. Just real, measurable signs that point to your biological truth. He begins with a simple, powerful premise. Your chronotype is written into your genes. It's not a preference. It's not a phase. It's not something you can willpower your way out of. It's your body's design. Your circadian rhythm, your internal 24-hour clock, governs more than just sleep. It directs hormone release, hunger cues, mood patterns, mental sharpness, emotional resilience, and even your ability to connect with others. So when your lifestyle constantly contradicts your chronotype, it's like forcing your body to wear a pair of shoes that almost fit. You can walk in them, but not for long, not without pain. Breus makes it clear, discovering your chronotype is not about labeling yourself. It's about liberation. It's about understanding why you feel off at certain times and alive at others. Why some days flow and others drag. Why you've been successful in one role and struggled in another. It's not about effort, it's about timing. To help you figure out your when, Breus provides a quiz, part biology, part psychology, part observation. It asks you things like, what time do you naturally wake up when you're on vacation? How alert are you in the morning? When do you feel most creative, most social, most clear-headed? How easily do you fall asleep? How long does it take you to feel fully awake after getting up? What's your general outlook on life? Are you optimistic, anxious, driven, flexible? These questions peel back layers. They show patterns. And while it's possible to relate to more than one chronotype, one usually rises above the rest. You might work like a bear, but feel like a wolf inside. You might keep lying hours because your job demands it, but your soul knows you're a dolphin. Breus reminds us that our environment can train us to act a certain way, but it can't erase our biology. It always finds a way to surface. The moment you identify your chronotype, truly see it, name it, and own it, is the moment everything starts to realign. Suddenly, the 3 p.m. slump isn't a failure. It's just your dip. That late-night burst of focus you thought was procrastination? It's your peak. That resistance you feel every morning when your alarm rings at 6:30 a.m.? It's not lack of discipline. It's your body saying, "This isn't my time." Breus urges us to stop fighting that voice. Stop measuring ourselves against other people's clocks. The world may not always cater to your when, but once you know it, you can start to adjust, even in small ways. You can push big tasks into your peak hours. You can structure sleep to match your biological dip and rise. You can communicate better with others because you'll understand when you're most emotionally grounded. More than anything, knowing your when allows you to forgive yourself for all the times you thought you were failing when, in reality, you were simply misaligned. This knowledge invites grace. You're not flawed for needing rest when the world says hustle. You're not lazy for finding your spark at 9 p.m. instead of 9 a.m. You're not scattered for not fitting someone else's blueprint. You are you. And that is enough. Dr. Breus leaves you with this thought. You don't need to change who you are to live better. You just need to do things at the right time. When you align with your chronotype, the world begins to open, not because it changes, but because you do. You stop paddling upstream. You find your rhythm. And life, for the first time in a long time, starts to feel like a song that was always written for you. So when are you? That's the question you carry forward into the rest of this book. And as you move into chapter 7, the focus narrows. Now that you know who you are, and when you are, it's time to explore how this rhythm affects the most essential pillar of health, sleep. Because sleep, it turns out, isn't just about how long you rest. It's about when you fall asleep, when you wake up, and what your body does between those 2 points in the dark. Chapter 7, When to Sleep. There's a quiet kind of longing that lives in all of us, one that rises not just in the yawns of a long day, but in the deeper weariness that stretches across weeks, months, even years. It's the longing to sleep well. Not just to close your eyes and clock hours in bed, but to wake up and truly feel rested. To feel whole again. But for many, sleep has become a struggle. You go to bed at a decent hour. You avoid caffeine. You dim the lights. You do everything they say. And yet, you still wake up groggy. Or worse, you lie in bed staring at the ceiling, tired but unable to slip into rest. And the most maddening part? You can't figure out why. But what if the real reason isn't about how much you sleep, but when? That's the heartbeat of this chapter. Dr. Breus wants you to understand something fundamental. Sleep is not just about quantity, it's about timing. It's not simply a box to check off or a race to 8 hours. Sleep is a symphony of carefully orchestrated rhythms inside your body, and unless you begin the song at the right moment, the notes fall out of tune. Your body knows this. It's been trying to tell you for years. But chances are, you've been taught to ignore its cues. You've been told to follow a schedule, get to bed by 10 p.m., wake up at 6 a.m., power through the day. And if that doesn't work, well, you must be doing something wrong. You try harder. You go to bed earlier. You add supplements. And when that doesn't work either, you blame yourself. But here's the truth that Dr. Breus gently offers. Your body isn't broken. It's simply being misunderstood. You're trying to live in a rhythm that isn't yours. Because while most advice on sleep treats all people the same, your body's internal clock, your chronotype, tells a different story. You see, every chronotype has its own sleep window. Your brain doesn't just fall asleep because you want it to. It waits for a surge of melatonin, the hormone that cues your body to wind down. But melatonin doesn't operate on your social schedule. It follows your internal one. If you're a lion, melatonin rises early, around 8 o'clock or 9 p.m. If you're a bear, it shows up closer to 10 o'clock or 10:30. Wolves often don't feel it until 11 p.m. or later. Dolphins? Well, they tend to struggle with inconsistent melatonin rhythms altogether. Sensitive sleepers who often lie in bed restless while their brains keep churning. Trying to sleep before your body is ready is like stepping onto a train platform before the train arrives. You can sit. You can wait. But you're not going anywhere. Your body is still idling. You might close your eyes, but your brain won't follow. Dr. Breus explains that when you sleep in alignment with your chronotype, something powerful happens. You don't just fall asleep more easily, you sleep deeper. You move more fluidly through the stages of rest, light sleep, deep sleep, REM. You wake up more refreshed. Your hormones balance more naturally. Even your emotional state improves. Sleep becomes less of a nightly battle and more of a natural, rhythmic dance. So what are these ideal rhythms? If you're a lion, your best sleep comes from turning in around 10 p.m. and waking at 5:30 or 6 a.m. That early shutdown honors your body's early rise in melatonin and supports your naturally proactive mornings. If you're a bear, you do best sleeping from about 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., roughly following the sun's rhythm. The world often caters to bear time, so you might already feel somewhat in sync. But if you're a wolf, this is where life gets trickier. Your body doesn't even want to sleep until midnight or later. And waking before 8 a.m. often feels like punishment. Unfortunately, the world isn't built for wolves. Many are forced to function on bear time, which leaves them chronically sleep-deprived, often misunderstood, and painfully out of sync. Breus encourages wolves to claim their rhythm wherever they can. If your life allows it, schedule work later. Don't fight for a 5 a.m. miracle morning. Lean into your biological truth instead. Then, there are dolphins, the most complex sleepers of all. Often struggling with insomnia or fragmented rest, dolphins tend to lie awake despite being exhausted. Their melatonin rhythm is irregular, and their brains rarely shut off on command. Breus suggests that dolphins sleep from about 12:30 to 7:30 a.m., but even more important is developing a consistent wind-down ritual that calms the anxious, overactive brain before bed. Without that ritual, no schedule will stick. And what about those nights where sleep just won't come? When your body's tired, but your mind is racing? That's where understanding your rhythm helps most. Breus reminds us, forcing sleep is like forcing love. It doesn't work. Instead, he suggests preparing for rest with intention. Dim the lights at least an hour before bed. Avoid screens or bright LED lighting that tricks your brain into thinking it's still daytime. Read a physical book. Take a warm shower. Journal. Stretch gently. Create a ritual that tells your body, we're safe now. It's time to let go. Light is one of the most powerful tools for resetting sleep rhythms. Within 30 minutes of waking, get sunlight if you can. Even stepping outside for 5 minutes helps regulate your internal clock, telling your body it's time to rise. And in the evening, keep lights soft. Use amber bulbs or candlelight if possible. These cues aren't small, they're biological triggers. Your circadian rhythm depends on them. Breus also touches on naps, offering a nuanced take. For some chronotypes, especially bears and dolphins, short naps in the early afternoon can offer a needed reset. But timing is key. A 20-minute nap refreshes without diving into deep sleep, while a 90-minute nap allows a full cycle. Anything in between often leads to grogginess. Wolves should avoid late-day naps, which can further delay their already late sleep onset. Lions may not need naps at all, given their early, consistent rhythms. Above all, the message is this: sleep isn't just about the hours you're unconscious, it's about how well those hours work for you. When you shift from fighting your body to following its rhythm, sleep stops being a nightly battle and becomes something sacred again. Something restorative. Something that, night after night, rebuilds the best version of you. Sleep is not a punishment or a reward. It's not the last thing you do in the day. It's the foundation of everything else. Your thinking, your health, your emotions, your relationships. It begins when you stop looking at the clock and start listening to the whisper of your own body. Now, it's time. And when you honor that whisper, when you lie down not because you're supposed to, but because your one has arrived, something beautiful happens. You sleep. And you wake up whole. In the next chapter, Dr. Breus turns his attention to something just as central to daily life as sleep: eating. Because just like sleep, hunger and digestion follow their own biological clocks. And when you eat at the right time, your energy, metabolism, and even your mood begin to fall into harmony. Chapter 7. When to Sleep. There's a quiet kind of longing that lives in all of us, one that rises not just in the yawns of a long day, but in the deeper weariness that stretches across weeks, months, even years. It's the longing to sleep well. Not just to close your eyes and clock hours in bed, but to wake up and truly feel rested. To feel whole again. But for many, sleep has become a struggle. You go to bed at a decent hour. You avoid caffeine. You dim the lights. You do everything they say. And yet, you still wake up groggy. Or worse, you lie in bed staring at the ceiling, tired but unable to slip into rest. And the most maddening part? You can't figure out why. But what if the real reason isn't about how much you sleep, but when? That's the heartbeat of this chapter. Dr. Breus wants you to understand something fundamental. Sleep is not just about quantity, it's about timing. It's not simply a box to check off, or a race to 8 hours. Sleep is a symphony of carefully orchestrated rhythms inside your body, and unless you begin the song at the right moment, the notes fall out of tune. Your body knows this. It's been trying to tell you for years. But chances are, you've been taught to ignore its cues. You've been told to follow a schedule, get to bed by 10 p.m., wake up at 6 a.m., power through the day. And if that doesn't work, well, you must be doing something wrong. You try harder. You go to bed earlier. You add supplements. And when that doesn't work either, you blame yourself. But here's the truth that Dr. Breus gently offers. Your body isn't broken. It's simply being misunderstood. You're trying to live in a rhythm that isn't yours. Because while most advice on sleep treats all people the same, your body's internal clock, your chronotype, tells a different story. You see, every chronotype has its own sleep window. Your brain doesn't just fall asleep because you want it to. It waits for a surge of melatonin, the hormone that cues your body to wind down. But melatonin doesn't operate on your social schedule. It follows your internal one. If you're a lion, melatonin rises early, around 8 o'clock or 9 p.m. If you're a bear, it shows up closer to 10 o'clock or 10:30. Wolves often don't feel it until 11 p.m. or later. Dolphins? Well, they tend to struggle with inconsistent melatonin rhythms altogether. Sensitive sleepers who often lie in bed restless while their brains keep churning. Trying to sleep before your body is ready is like stepping onto a train platform before the train arrives. You can sit. You can wait. But you're not going anywhere. Your body is still idling. You might close your eyes, but your brain won't follow. Dr. Breus explains that when you sleep in alignment with your chronotype, something powerful happens. You don't just fall asleep more easily, you sleep deeper. You move more fluidly through the stages of rest, light sleep, deep sleep, REM. You wake up more refreshed. Your hormones balance more naturally. Even your emotional state improves. Sleep becomes less of a nightly battle and more of a natural, rhythmic dance. So what are these ideal rhythms? If you're a lion, your best sleep comes from turning in around 10 p.m. and waking at 5:30 or 6 a.m. That early shutdown honors your body's early rise in melatonin and supports your naturally proactive mornings. If you're a bear, you do best sleeping from about 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., roughly following the sun's rhythm. The world often caters to bear time, so you might already feel somewhat in sync. But if you're a wolf, this is where life gets trickier. Your body doesn't even want to sleep until midnight or later. And waking before 8 a.m. often feels like punishment. Unfortunately, the world isn't built for wolves. Many are forced to function on bear time, which leaves them chronically sleep-deprived, often misunderstood, and painfully out of sync. Breus encourages wolves to claim their rhythm wherever they can. If your life allows it, schedule work later. Don't fight for a 5 a.m. miracle morning. Lean into your biological truth instead. Then, there are dolphins, the most complex sleepers of all. Often struggling with insomnia or fragmented rest, dolphins tend to lie awake despite being exhausted. Their melatonin rhythm is irregular, and their brains rarely shut off on command. Breus suggests that dolphins sleep from about 12:30 to 7:30 a.m., but even more important is developing a consistent wind-down ritual that calms the anxious, overactive brain before bed. Without that ritual, no schedule will stick. And what about those nights where sleep just won't come? When your body's tired, but your mind is racing? That's where understanding your rhythm helps most. Breus reminds us, forcing sleep is like forcing love. It doesn't work. Instead, he suggests preparing for rest with intention. Dim the lights at least an hour before bed. Avoid screens or bright LED lighting that tricks your brain into thinking it's still daytime. Read a physical book. Take a warm shower. Journal. Stretch gently. Create a ritual that tells your body, we're safe now. It's time to let go. Light is one of the most powerful tools for resetting sleep rhythms. Within 30 minutes of waking, get sunlight if you can. Even stepping outside for 5 minutes helps regulate your internal clock, telling your body it's time to rise. And in the evening, keep lights soft. Use amber bulbs or candlelight if possible. These cues aren't small, they're biological triggers. Your circadian rhythm depends on them. Breus also touches on naps, offering a nuanced take. For some chronotypes, especially bears and dolphins, short naps in the early afternoon can offer a needed reset. But timing is key. A 20-minute nap refreshes without diving into deep sleep, while a 90-minute nap allows a full cycle. Anything in between often leads to grogginess. Wolves should avoid late-day naps, which can further delay their already late sleep onset. Lions may not need naps at all, given their early, consistent rhythms. Above all, the message is this: sleep isn't just about the hours you're unconscious, It's about how well those hours work for you. When you shift from fighting your body to following its rhythm, sleep stops being a nightly battle and becomes something sacred again. Something restorative. Something that, night after night, rebuilds the best version of you. Sleep is not a punishment or a reward. It's not the last thing you do in the day. It's the foundation of everything else. Your thinking, your health, your emotions, your relationships. It begins when you stop looking at the clock and start listening to the whisper of your own body. Now, it's time. And when you honor that whisper, when you lie down not because you're supposed to, but because your one has arrived, something beautiful happens. You sleep. And you wake up whole. In the next chapter, Dr. Breus turns his attention to something just as central to daily life as sleep, eating. Because just like sleep, hunger and digestion follow their own biological clocks. And when you eat at the right time, your energy, metabolism, and even your mood begin to fall into harmony. Chapter 9. When to move. We all know movement matters. That we should exercise, stretch, stay active, not just for how we look, but for how we live. And yet, how often does movement feel like something you have to do, rather than something your body genuinely wants? We force it into our calendars, we guilt ourselves when we miss it, and when we do show up, we wonder why it doesn't always feel good. But Dr. Michael Breus invites us to rethink the entire relationship between body and movement. He doesn't ask, "Are you exercising enough?" He asks something far more liberating. "Are you moving at the right time?" Because in the same way that your sleep, your meals, and your emotions move on a rhythm, so too does your body's readiness for physical performance. And the timing, your when, changes everything. This chapter opens the door to a radical idea. The best time to move your body isn't when the world says it's time to move. It's when your internal rhythm peaks, when your coordination, endurance, strength, and focus naturally rise without force. And like everything in this book, that rhythm depends on your chronotype. Your body isn't resisting exercise because it's lazy or broken. It may simply be out of sync with you. Lions, for example, tend to wake up full of drive. Their minds are alert early, and they often feel a strong desire to check off their workout first thing in the morning. But here's the twist. While their mental sharpness is high, their physical peak actually arrives a bit later, around mid-morning to early afternoon. So while a 6 a.m. workout might feel productive, a 10 a.m. session would feel more powerful. The body's temperature is higher, muscles are looser, reflexes sharper. Lions benefit from light movement early, stretching, walking, but save their real power moves for that late morning sweet spot. Bears, on the other hand, move at a pace that mirrors the sun. Their energy builds gradually, peaking midday. They don't leap into the morning like lions, but their steadiness becomes their superpower. Around 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., their bodies are most ready, warm, steady, strong. And when they move at that time, everything feels more efficient. Bears thrive on consistency, not intensity. A good walk, a swim, a steady run, those middle-of-the-day movements help bears avoid the afternoon crash and support deeper sleep later on. Their exercise isn't about transformation, it's about regulation. It's a gentle, grounded rhythm. Then there are wolves, the night-loving creatives who wake up in a fog and feel most alive when the sun begins to set. Morning workouts for wolves? Practically a punishment. Their bodies feel heavy, cold, uncoordinated. But wait until the late afternoon or early evening, sometime between 6 o'clock and 9 p.m., and wolves suddenly awaken. Their strength, reflexes, and drive snap into place. And it's not just that they're awake, it's that they're wired for power. This is when wolves can push themselves, sweat deeply, and even enjoy movement. Forcing a wolf into an early morning fitness class is like trying to play jazz at dawn. It's just the wrong setting for their natural tempo. but honor their timing, and they'll move with a fluidity and force that surprises even them. And then we have dolphins. Sensitive, often anxious, and mentally overactive, dolphins have the most fragile relationship with both sleep and movement. Their challenge isn't laziness, it's overstimulation. Exercise that's too intense or mistimed can leave them wired, anxious, or depleted. For dolphins, movement needs to be thoughtful, rhythmic, and above all, well-timed. Their best window tends to fall between late morning and early afternoon, roughly 8 to 11 a.m. This is when their minds are alert, their bodies are gently waking up, and the opportunity for release, not stimulation, is highest. Yoga, Pilates, swimming, or walking suits them best. Activities that suit the nervous system while still offering strength and motion. For dolphins, exercise isn't about pushing limits. It's about reconnecting to peace. But this chapter isn't just about knowing your time slot. It's about shedding the shame that so often wraps around exercise. Breus gently dismantles the myth that the only real workout is an intense, sweat-drenched ordeal. He reminds us that movement is any deliberate engagement with the body. Walking counts. Stretching counts. Dancing in your kitchen counts. We've been so trained to chase intensity that we've forgotten to honor rhythm. When you exercise at the right time for your chronotype, you don't need to push as hard. Your body meets you halfway. Your endurance lengthens, your strength rises, your recovery improves. You begin to enjoy movement. And that shift, from obligation to rhythm, is everything. There's something deeply affirming in this idea. That your body already knows the best time to move. That you don't have to punish yourself into health. That your struggle to stay consistent might not be a failure of willpower, it might be a mismatch of timing. Maybe you weren't weak. Maybe you were just moving out of sync. And so, Breus invites us to track the natural arc of our energy. To stop copying someone else's routine and start listening to our own pulse. When do you feel most alive? When do you feel most grounded? When does your mind feel calm and your breath feel deep? Those are your signposts. Not the alarm clock. Not the fitness app. You. Movement is not just about building a body, it's about building trust. And when you finally stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" and start asking, "What is right for me?" something unlocks. You begin to move in partnership with your body, not in opposition to it. And suddenly, movement becomes a celebration, not a perfection, but of timing and self-respect. As we leave this chapter, Dr. Breus turns our attention toward the rhythms of the mind. Because just like the body, the brain has a best time to solve, create, focus, and imagine. Your intellect, like your muscles, has a peak, and when you discover it, your work, your ideas, even your creativity begin to unfold with a kind of effortless clarity. Chapter 10. When to Think. There's something quietly revolutionary about realizing your mind, much like your body, is on a clock. Not a mechanical clock that ticks away on a wall or flashes on your phone, but a biological one, deep, internal, and utterly personal. We've been taught to treat our brains like machines, turn them on in the morning, keep them running all day, and expect them to deliver on command. Work, think, focus, perform. And when our minds don't cooperate, when the focus won't come or the ideas won't land, we blame ourselves. We call it laziness, or distraction, or lack of discipline. But what if none of that is true? What if your brain isn't broken, but simply being asked to work at the wrong time? This chapter quietly appends everything we believed about intelligence and productivity. Dr. Michael Breus introduces the idea that your brain, just like your sleep and metabolism, follows a unique rhythm dictated by your chronotype. And within that rhythm, there are ideal windows, moments when your mental abilities naturally peak, and others when they ebb. Trying to force deep thinking outside your mental peak isn't just difficult, it's often counterproductive. Understanding when your brain is wired to think, solve, create, and imagine could be the single most important shift in how you live, work, and even understand yourself. Let's start with the lions. Early risers, driven and decisive, lions often feel mentally sharp from the moment they wake up. Their cortisol levels are high in the morning, giving them a natural mental edge. The early hours, between 6 a.m. and noon, are when their brains are wired for problem solving, planning, strategy, and anything that demands structure or logic. They are the people who wake up with ideas already forming, who write emails before breakfast and map out the day before others have even opened their eyes. But as the day unfolds, something changes. Lions begin to fade. Their sharp mental focus begins to blur. They become less linear, more emotionally intuitive, more reflective. Trying to write a report or crunch numbers at 5 p.m., as a lion often feels, like swimming through fog. It's not that they're less smart later in the day, they're just wired for a different kind of thinking. The smart move is to schedule high-focus work for the morning and leave the evening for lighter, more creative or passive mental tasks. Then come the bears. These are the people whose rhythm matches the sun. They wake slowly, warm up through the morning, and find their mental sweet spot between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. This is when their brains are in full gear, alert, focused, collaborative. Bears are great thinkers when they're not rushed. They benefit from having a little time to ease into their day before taking on complex work. Asking a bear to make critical decisions at 8 a.m. may not go well. But give them until mid-morning, and they'll show up with focus and clarity. Their thinking doesn't feel rushed, it feels grounded. Later in the day, as the sun begins to set, bears start to lose mental steam. It doesn't mean they can't work, it just means their peak has passed, and tasks that require energy and precision should be left behind. Bears do well with routine. When they think at the right times consistently, they become quietly unstoppable. Now consider the wolves, the late-night thinkers, creatives, and problem solvers who come alive when the rest of the world is winding down. Wolves often feel mentally sluggish in the morning. Before noon, their thoughts may come slowly, foggy and disconnected. And yet, around 4 o'clock or 5 p.m., something clicks. Their brains fire up. Ideas take shape. Connections begin to form. And from early evening to midnight, wolves are in their prime. This is their mental golden hour. It's when they should write, plan, brainstorm, invent. Their best ideas come not at the office conference table, but in the quiet of night, when the pressure is off and their brains are finally on. Many wolves spend years feeling guilty for not being productive in the morning, not realizing that their mental rhythm was simply misaligned with the world's schedule. Once they begin working with their rhythm, instead of against it, they stop apologizing for being late bloomers and start thriving on their own terms. And finally, the dolphins. These are the delicate thinkers, the deep processors, the ones whose minds are always slightly awake, even when their bodies are tired. Dolphins often struggle with anxiety or perfectionism. Their thoughts don't follow clean, linear paths. They wander, tangle, loop. But there is brilliance in that chaos. Their best mental window tends to fall between 8:30 a.m. and 2 p.m., when they've shaken off the initial morning fog, but haven't yet become overstimulated by the day. During that time, they can work through complex ideas, edit meticulously, and bring their natural sensitivity to tasks that demand nuance and care. But dolphins need boundaries. Too much mental work for too long can leave them frazzled. They're the ones who benefit most from structured thinking time, defined blocks followed by true rest. When they try to think all day, they burn out. When they honor their windows, their minds become places of insight and even beauty. Dr. Breus doesn't stop with chronotypes, though. He walks us through the different types of thinking, too. There's analytical thinking, focused, logical, detail-driven. There's creative thinking, loose, associative, expansive. There's problem solving, which often combines both. And then there's something most of us forget to value: mind wandering. That gentle, unstructured state where our thoughts drift and bump into each other, and new ideas are born not through effort, but through openness. Each of these types of thinking has its own rhythm. Most people are best at analytical work in their mental prime, and creative work in the off hours, when their defenses are down and their minds can play. And here's the most liberating part: you're not supposed to think clearly all the time. You're not broken because you can't focus for 8 hours straight. That's not a personal failure, it's biology. Your brain isn't built for endless clarity. It's built to pulse, to peak and drop, to focus and rest, to work and wander. When you recognize that, you stop fighting your mind. You start respecting it. Instead of asking, "Why can't I think straight right now?" you begin asking, "Is this my time to think straight?" It's a simple shift in question, but it changes everything. You begin to schedule your tasks differently. You move meetings. You batch your work. You protect your peak mental hours like the precious resource they are. And slowly, you build a life that works with your brain instead of against it. Because thinking well isn't about pushing harder, it's about thinking on time. When you find your timing, clarity becomes effortless. Creativity flows. Decisions come faster. The fog lifts. You stop chasing mental perfection and start living in mental rhythm. You think better, not because you're smarter, but because you're synchronized. And as this chapter closes, Dr. Breus leads us into one of the most tender and human parts of our biology: connection. Because even love, touch, and intimacy have a when. And once we understand the timing of the heart, we open ourselves to deeper relationships, more meaningful communication, and the kind of emotional intimacy that's as much about rhythm as it is about feeling. Chapter 11: When to Love. Love is more than a feeling. It's a rhythm. We grow up thinking love is spontaneous, unpredictable, magical, something that just happens when the stars align or sparks fly. We think romance should strike at any moment, intimacy should be possible anytime, and emotional connection should be available on demand. But time and time again, we find ourselves misaligned. One person wants closeness while the other wants space. One craves touch, the other silence. One wants to talk at midnight, the other's already drifting to sleep. And when these rhythms clash, we often take it personally. We assume something's wrong with us, with them, with the relationship. But maybe it's not a matter of love at all. Maybe it's just about timing. In this chapter, Dr. Michael Breus shows us something we don't often see. Even love has a when. Just like sleep, food, thinking, and exercise, intimacy, emotional or physical, follows the natural cycles of your chronotype. That means the moments when your body and heart are most open to connection are predictable. They're wired into you. It's not about how much love you feel, but about when you're most available to feel it, express it, and receive it fully. Let's begin with lions. These are the early risers, the planners, the people whose energy peaks in the morning and fades as the sun goes down. Lions often feel most emotionally and physically available in the early evening, around 5 to 9 p.m. During this window, they've had time to unwind from their productive day, and while they may not be wild romantics, they are sincere, loyal, and deeply present. Try to connect with a lion too late, say, at 10:30 or 11 p.m., and you'll be met with yawns, not passion. That's not a lack of affection, it's biology. Their tank is simply empty by then. But catch them as they're winding down, and you'll get warmth, steadiness, and affection that feels grounded and real. Bears, the steady pacers of the chronotype world, tend to align with the rhythm of the sun. Their prime time for love and connection is between 7 p.m. and 10 p.m. By then, the day's tasks are behind them, dinner has settled, and the pressures of work have faded. They're ready to settle into something softer: conversation, closeness, shared silence. For bears, love is comfort. It's the steady arm around your shoulder, the soft words exchanged in the quiet moments. They don't need grand gestures. They need presence. If you push too early, when they're still in task mode, or too late, when they've already begun to doze off, they may seem distant. But respect their window, and they become deeply affectionate and emotionally generous. Then we have wolves, late-night creatures. Introspective, creative, and romantic in a way that feels almost cinematic. But not during the day. During daylight, wolves often feel emotionally distant, not because they don't care, but because their energy hasn't arrived yet. Their minds and hearts don't fully engage until after the sun begins to set. Between 8 p.m. and midnight, wolves come alive. That's when they want to talk deeply, to kiss slowly, to connect in a way that's emotionally electric. It's when they become playful, passionate, and vulnerable. Many wolves have been told they're too intense or too unavailable, but what they really are is mistimed. Give them the night, and they'll give you their soul. But ask for closeness before they're ready, and you'll get a wall, not a door. And then there are the dolphins. Sensitive, thoughtful, often anxious. Their relationship with love is complicated, not because they don't feel deeply, but because their minds rarely quiet enough to fully relax into intimacy. For dolphins, connection works best during the late afternoon and early evening, around 4 to 8 p.m. Earlier than that, they're caught in the chaos of the day. Later than that, their nerves might be too frayed to engage. Dolphins need calm, predictability, and reassurance. They thrive when there's emotional safety and low stimulation. Loud environments, last-minute romantic gestures, or high-pressure moments can make them shut down. But approach them gently during their window, and you'll find a depth of feeling and attentiveness that is rare and beautiful. The profound message here is this: you're not broken if you and your partner don't always want the same things at the same time. You're just different. And those differences are wired into your biology. The key is not to force intimacy, but to find the time when it flows naturally. You begin to see that what felt like rejection was often just exhaustion. What felt like coldness was misaligned energy. What felt like incompatibility was a simple mistiming of emotional clocks. Dr. Breus also gently reminds us that intimacy isn't only about sex. It's about presence. It's about knowing when someone is most open to being seen. It's about when to talk about difficult things, when to ask for affection, when to say, "I love you," and have it land. Love is more likely to grow when it's spoken in the same rhythm as the person you're trying to reach. And the beauty of this chapter is that it doesn't just help you understand your rhythm. It helps you understand your partner's. Suddenly, mismatched expectations start to soften. You begin to approach each other with more empathy. You stop assuming bad intentions. You start seeing the wisdom of timing. And in that space, love becomes easier, not because there's less effort, but because the effort is finally pointed in the right direction. There's a kind of peace that comes from loving someone on time. A quiet joy in syncing your rhythm with theirs. A deep sense of safety in knowing that when the moment comes, when the heart is open and the mind is still, you'll both be there, fully present, without resistance. And as we move from this chapter, Dr. Breus prepares us to step into something we rarely think has a rhythm at all: relaxation. But even chilling out, it turns out, has a best time. There's a moment when your nervous system is most willing to let go, when your body is finally ready to breathe. And when you find that moment, rest stops feeling like something you have to earn, and starts feeling like something you naturally fall into. Chapter 12: When to Chill. Relaxation has somehow become a lost art. In a world that constantly asks us to hustle, push, strive, and perform, chilling out can feel counterintuitive, almost rebellious. And yet, we all crave it. That stillness. That slow exhale. That moment where the world quiets down and we finally feel like we're not fighting time, but floating with it. The problem is, most of us try to force relaxation the same way we try to force productivity. We slap it on the schedule, fill it with expectation, and get frustrated when it doesn't come easily. But Dr. Michael Breus invites us to look at relaxation through a new lens, not as a luxury or even a skill, but as a biological rhythm. Because yes, even chilling has a win. What Dr. Breus uncovers in this chapter is both freeing and fascinating. Your ability to relax has a natural window. Your body and mind aren't always ready to let go, but when they are, they're asking you, sometimes begging you, to slow down. And if you listen at the right time, you'll find that relaxation doesn't have to be manufactured. It can be something that rises gently, organically, like the tide coming in. Each chronotype has a different tide. Take the lions, for instance, the go-getters, the early risers, the ones who've often completed half their to-do list before most people have opened their eyes. These individuals expend a lot of energy up front. By late afternoon, they're coasting on momentum, and their nervous systems are quietly signaling that it's time to decompress. For a lion, the best time to chill isn't late at night. It's somewhere between 4 o'clock and 7 p.m. That's when their bodies are naturally trying to transition from doing to being. If they ignore that cue and keep pushing through the evening, they risk becoming restless or irritable. But if they honor it, even in small ways, by stepping outside for a walk, dimming the lights, putting their phone away, relaxation finds them easily, like an old friend showing up at the door with no need to knock. Then, there are the bears, who make up the majority of the population. Bears run on a rhythm closely tied to the sun, which makes their wind-down time land around 7 to 10 p.m. By this time, they've been on all day, thinking, working, managing, helping. Their bodies begin to release melatonin naturally as the sun sets, signaling that it's time to soften. Bears respond well to routines. They like to have a familiar sequence of unwinding. Maybe it's dinner, then cleaning up, then a favorite show or podcast, followed by something simple like folding laundry or chatting with a loved one. That predictability doesn't bore them, it soothes them. If you're a bear, your best chill happens in that window, when the world starts getting quiet, and you can finally come home to yourself. Wolves, though, wolves are a different story. These night-oriented thinkers and creatives often find that the evening is when they hit their stride. Their challenge isn't waking up, it's shutting down. They may feel alert, inspired, even wired, right when others are preparing for bed. And so, for wolves, the idea of chilling out can feel like being asked to sprint underwater. It's not that they don't want peace, they just aren't ready yet. Their ideal time to begin unwinding is around 10 to 11 p.m. Before that, they're still mentally active. But after that, their bodies start hinting at readiness, a heaviness in the limbs, a yawn that slips out, a drop in motivation. Wolves benefit from rituals that don't require full shutdown, but instead guide them gently into stillness. A dim room, soft background music, maybe a candle or a bath. Wolves can't jump from go mode to off mode, they need a runway. But once they're in the air, rest feels deeply satisfying. And what about dolphins? The sensitive, often restless chronotype that carries tension like a second skin. For them, relaxation can feel like a puzzle. Their minds never quite turn off. Their hearts are often racing a little ahead. Relaxation for a dolphin isn't something they fall into. It's something they ease into cautiously. The ideal window for them is typically between 5 o'clock and 8 p.m. Not too late. By then their anxiety might have built up. Not too early. They're still tangled in the day's stimuli. What works for dolphins isn't dramatic or overwhelming. It's small, soothing signals, a quiet space, controlled lighting, a breathing exercise, a short walk in nature. They benefit from structure. A short, repeated routine helps them tell their nervous system, "You're safe now. You can rest." And once that message lands, the dolphin's mind, so often buzzing, can finally float. What ties all of this together is the realization that relaxation isn't a one-size-fits-all event. We've been taught to think there's a right way to unwind: a yoga class, a book, a meditation app. And those can help. But the real secret isn't in what you do, it's in when you do it. Try to relax outside of your body's natural rhythm, and it feels like trying to sleep with the lights on. But enter that window, that gentle slope your biology offers you each day, and you don't have to force peace. You just remember it. This chapter also invites you to stop judging yourself for how hard it's been to relax. If you've ever sat in stillness and felt your skin crawl, if you've ever tried to meditate and felt more anxious afterward, if you've ever wondered why chilling out feels like work, you're not broken. You're probably just mistimed. And now that you know that, you can start to listen differently, to trust your own signals, to notice when your shoulders drop without being told to, when your breath softens because it finally can. And perhaps the most beautiful insight of all is this: the rest you crave isn't just physical. It's emotional. It's mental. It's spiritual. Your need for peace isn't a flaw, it's a feature, a sign that you're human. And the moment you stop trying to wrestle rest into existence and instead need it at the time your body is naturally asking for it, you find something you may have forgotten existed: true ease. Next, we move into a topic that seems simple on the surface, but is deeply transformative once you understand its timing: eating. Because even hunger, digestion, and nutrition follow the body's internal clock. And when you eat in sync with your chronotype, you don't just fuel your body, you balance your entire system. Let's continue with Chapter 13, When to Eat. Chapter 13, When to Eat. We live in a world obsessed with what to eat. High protein, low carb, Mediterranean, intermittent fasting, clean eating, keto, you name it. The shelves and feeds are full of it. But rarely do we ask the quieter, subtler question: when should I eat? Not just because I'm hungry, or it's lunchtime, or everyone else is doing it, but because my body is ready. That's the shift this chapter offers. Not a new diet plan, not another list of forbidden foods, but a recalibration. A reconnection to something we often ignore: your body's clock. Because it turns out, digestion has its own rhythm. Your hunger, metabolism, and ability to process food aren't static. They ebb and flow with your internal timekeeper. Eat in alignment with that, and your body hums. Eat against it, and you feel like you're pushing a stalled car uphill. Dr. Michael Breus takes us by the hand here and guides us into this fascinating intersection of chronobiology and nourishment. The truth is, every part of your digestive system, from the enzymes that break down your food to the hormones that regulate appetite, is timed. It's not just about willpower or macros. It's about when your stomach and brain agree that it's mealtime. Let's start with lions. These are the early birds, the go-getters, the people whose engines are already revving by 6 a.m. For them, breakfast is more than important, it's essential. Lions wake up with high cortisol, which kicks metabolism into gear. Waiting to eat means wasting their best fuel window. That's why they thrive on a big, protein-rich breakfast somewhere between 6:30 and 7:30 a.m. Something that grounds them: eggs, oats, nut butter, anything hearty. This isn't a quick snack-on-the-go situation. This is refueling a high-performance machine. Lunch needs to land by noon, or their energy begins to crash. And dinner? Keep it early, between 5 o'clock and 6 p.m., because by then, their digestive fire is dimming. Eating too late keeps their system buzzing long after their brain wants to sleep. Then come the bears, the steady pacers of the chronotype world. They wake up a bit more slowly, and aren't always hungry first thing. But that doesn't mean skipping breakfast altogether. A gentle meal by 8 o'clock or 8:30 a.m. gives their metabolism a soft nudge. They're the ones who do best with a mid-morning snack around 10 o'clock or 10:30, followed by a well-rounded lunch at 12:30 or 1 o'clock. Their sweet spot is consistency, a rhythm, a sense of structure that lets their system anticipate and prepare. Dinner, around 6 to 7:30 p.m., is their time to unwind and truly enjoy food, not rushed, not eaten on their feet, but relaxed and savored. Bears often graze, and that's okay, as long as the grazing doesn't sneak into the late night hours, where it can throw off digestion and sleep. Wolves, now, they live by a very different clock. These are the people whose bodies don't fully wake up until most of the world is halfway through their day. Asking a wolf to eat breakfast at 7 a.m. is like asking them to run a marathon in their sleep. It's just not going to work. Their cortisol spike comes later, and so should their first meal, ideally around 10 o'clock or 11 a.m. And that meal doesn't need to be big. A smoothie, some yogurt, a piece of fruit with nuts, just enough to wake up the system. Lunch happens later too, around 2 o'clock or 3 p.m., and dinner is where they truly come alive. That's when their digestive system hits its stride, between 7 o'clock and 9 p.m. While most advice says, don't eat late. For wolves, eating late isn't bad, it's aligned. Their stomachs are active, their minds are alert, and they're finally able to enjoy food. Trying to eat earlier would just leave them hungry and unsatisfied by nightfall. And then we meet the dolphins, the sensitive, sometimes anxious ones, whose sleep is light and whose energy flickers on and off throughout the day. For dolphins, eating needs to be slow and intentional. They may not feel hungry in the morning, but their body benefits from a calming, steady breakfast by 8:30 or 9 a.m. Nothing too heavy, nothing too sugary. Just enough to anchor them. A small lunch between 12:30 and 1:30 p.m. helps keep their mood and focus stable, and dinner should come between 6 o'clock and 7 p.m., never later. Their digestive system winds down early, and eating close to bedtime only worsens their sleep. For dolphins, structure is soothing. Meals need to be simple, regular, and non-stimulating. Overeating, snacking late, or chaotic meal patterns throw their system into stress, which in turn throws everything else off balance. What's beautiful about this chapter is that it doesn't shame. There's no, "You should be eating this way" message. It's more like a gentle, scientific whisper. Here's when your body is asking to be fed. It's about noticing, trusting, tuning in. Because when you eat at the right time, hunger feels natural, not desperate. Digestion becomes smooth, not sluggish. Energy feels clean and steady, not jittery or empty. We often punish ourselves for the way our bodies react to food, when really, our timing might just be off. Eating late and waking up bloated isn't about being undisciplined. It might just mean you're a bear or a dolphin whose system needed to shut down earlier. Skipping breakfast and crashing later in the day might not be a lack of planning. It could be your wolf metabolism resisting a mistimed meal. Once you know your chronotype, your meals don't have to be a guessing game. They become a partnership. And the deeper truth here is that eating is not just a physical act, it's emotional. It's cultural. It's memory. How and when we eat is often tied to family, routine, even self-worth. When you start eating on time, not by the world's clock, but by your own, you begin to reclaim a piece of that. Meals stop being about restriction or indulgence. They become about rhythm, about nourishment, about knowing that your body wants to work with you, not against you. So yes, you are what you eat, but you're also when you eat. And when you get that right, when your meals fall into harmony with your energy, your sleep, your mood, you don't just feel full. You feel aligned. Up next, Dr. Breus takes us to the other side of the productivity coin, not just fueling your body, but harnessing your focus. Because there's a best time to think, to strategize, to create, and when you work on time, you don't just get more done. You do it with less strain. Let's move into Chapter 14, When to Work. Chapter 14, When to Work. Work. We often treat it like a battlefield. Push harder, think faster, grind longer. We tie our worth to it, our schedules around it, our sense of purpose inside it. But what if work didn't have to feel like a war zone? What if the key to working better wasn't another productivity hack or time management system, but simply a matter of timing? That's what Dr. Michael Breus gently unpacks in this chapter. The radical, science-backed idea that we're all wired to work best at certain times, and when we figure out that when work starts to feel less like punishment and more like flow. Every chronotype has a unique rhythm, not just for sleeping or eating, but for thinking, creating, executing, working. The magic isn't in squeezing more out of your day. It's in aligning your tasks with the natural highs and lows of your energy. Let's start with lions, the early risers. These are the people who greet the morning with clarity, purpose, and a kind of quiet mental force. For lions, the prime work window opens just after sunrise. Between 8 a.m. and noon, their brain is firing on all cylinders. Problem solving, strategic planning, focused writing, this is when they shine. It's their time to lead, to think clearly, to make decisions without hesitation. But by early afternoon, that brilliance begins to fade. Their cognitive energy dips, and tasks that require precision or creativity become more laborious. That's when lions should pivot to lighter activities, emails, administrative work, conversations that don't require high-level thinking. And as evening sets in, they should respect the slope their brain wants to follow. Down. Not because they're weak, but because they've already done their best work when the rest of the world was still rubbing sleep from its eyes. Bears, who make up the majority of the population, follow a more solar pattern. They don't burst into action like lions, but they build steady momentum through the morning. Around 10 a.m., they hit their stride. From then until about 2 p.m., bears are in their work prime. This is when their thinking is clearest, their energy most stable, and their emotions balanced enough for effective teamwork or solo productivity. After lunch, there's a natural dip, somewhere between 2:30 and 4 p.m. Bears who try to power through that dip often burn out by evening. But those who use it wisely, for simple tasks, for rest, for walking meetings or lower-stakes conversations, come back refreshed for a lighter, second wave in the late afternoon. Bears don't need to dominate their schedule. They just need to respect it. Their workday is like a bell curve, steady climb, a full peak, and a slow, graceful descent. Now wolves, the night dwellers, live by a completely different code. Mornings feel heavy to them, foggy, like their brains haven't yet caught up with the day. That's not laziness, it's biology. Their cortisol spikes later. Their brainwaves don't sync with early productivity. But give them space, let them linger through the late morning in low-effort mode, and by 2 o'clock or 3 p.m., something happens. The fog lifts. The light turns on. Between 4 o'clock and 9 p.m., wolves hit their mental stride. They write, create, solve, design, lead. It's their golden hour. A time when thoughts aren't forced, they just come. Wolves who try to mimic lions often feel defeated. But wolves who embrace their own timing, who schedule high-focus tasks in the evening, often outperform expectations. For them, the idea that nothing good happens after dark couldn't be more false. In fact, most of their best ideas are born there. Dolphins, the anxious light sleepers, have a rhythm that's more complicated. Their minds are always on, in some way, thinking, scanning, worrying. That hyper-awareness makes long stretches of focus difficult. but it also gives them an incredible ability to zoom in and notice what others miss. For dolphins, the best time to work is usually in short, structured bursts during the mid to late afternoon, roughly 3 to 6 p.m. Before that, their energy is jittery, scattered, distracted by everything and nothing. But in those later hours, they settle. They can enter pockets of deep attention, especially if distractions are minimized and expectations are clear. Dolphins do best with sprint-based work, 20 to 30 minutes of focus, followed by recovery. It's not about endurance. It's about precision. They may not grind for 8 hours straight, but what they do produce can be brilliant, detailed, and unusually insightful. The beauty of this chapter is in its honesty. It doesn't pretend we all work the same. It doesn't shame us for not fitting into a rigid corporate mold. Instead, it reminds us that productivity isn't one size fits all. It's a rhythm, personal, biological, and completely valid in its uniqueness. When you work with your chronotype, procrastination softens. Mental fatigue fades. You stop battling your brain and start listening to it. You start noticing when focus comes easily and stop punishing yourself when it doesn't. And most of all, you stop defining your worth by someone else's timetable. You also start understanding your colleagues better. Maybe your teammate isn't slow. They're just a wolf being dragged through a 9 a.m. meeting. Maybe your boss isn't cold. They're a lion who's already halfway into the next day. This awareness isn't just personal, it's collaborative. It helps teams flow, families understand one another, and workplaces evolve from rigid to human. And it's not about being less ambitious. It's about being smart with your ambition. Timing your work means you stop spinning your wheels. You stop grinding through foggy hours trying to force inspiration. Instead, you save your real mental horsepower for the times when your brain is actually ready to give it. You honor your mind's wave, not by controlling it, but by riding it. So yes, work still takes effort. It still requires commitment. But when you align it with your biology, that effort feels different. It feels like momentum instead of resistance, like glide instead of drag. And in that space, work becomes more than a duty, it becomes something close to ease. And just when you've mastered your focus, Dr. Breus invites you to go deeper. Because beyond logic and discipline, there's another realm of the mind waiting to be timed well: creativity. When you think best is one thing, but when your most imaginative ideas surface, that's a whole other rhythm. Chapter 15. When to think. We often believe that thinking is something we can do on command, like flipping a switch. Sit down, focus, and the ideas will come. That's the script we've been taught since school. Solve the math problem, write the essay, come up with a solution, now. But what if it's not about how hard you try, but when you try? What if the real secret to clear, creative, effective thinking isn't in forcing your brain into gear, but in knowing when to let it lead? That's the idea Dr. Michael Breus opens up in this chapter, a quiet revolution in how we approach mental work. According to him, thinking isn't just an act of discipline. It's an act of timing. Every brain has its own ideal window for clarity, logic, imagination, and insight. And once you start aligning your thinking tasks with your chronotype, you unlock a version of your mind you didn't even know was available to you. Take the lion, for instance. These are the early risers, the morning movers, the people whose minds are alert even before the sun fully rises. For them, the first half of the day is prime time. Their best logical thinking happens between 8 a.m. and 12 p.m. That's when they can make decisions, solve problems, manage tasks, and tackle high-level planning with ease. Their minds are sharp, structured, and stable. But creativity, for lions, doesn't really bloom until later in the day. As their grip on control eases, often around 5 to 7 p.m., their minds soften, and imaginative thinking takes the wheel. That's when their inner artist peeks out, When the ideas become more flexible, the solutions less obvious, but more interesting. It's a beautiful rhythm if they learn to trust it. Logic in the morning, innovation in the early evening. Then come the bears, the steady-paced majority. Bears are not early birds, nor are they night owls. They follow the sun, waking up with it, winding down with it, and thinking best in the hours around mid-morning to early afternoon. Their peak logical window runs from about 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. This is the time to schedule decisions, hold meetings, write reports, or solve technical issues. But when it comes to creativity, bears get a second wind later in the day. Their best ideas often come unannounced in the quiet evening hours, especially between 8 o'clock and 10 p.m., when there are fewer expectations and more space to wander mentally. It's in this time that their brains, no longer burdened by tasks or obligations, begin to play again. And in that playfulness, innovation happens. Wolves, by contrast, don't even start to truly think until the day is half over. Morning hours are sluggish, foggy, frustrating. They struggle with routine tasks and often feel judged for not being on early. But once they reach the late afternoon, something shifts. Between 4 o'clock and 6 p.m., wolves' analytical minds wake up. They can think sharply, organize, build strategies, and execute. But their true gift lies even later, in the late evening, from 9 p.m. to midnight. That's when their creative mind lights up. Ideas flow with ease. Connections happen organically. They don't have to dig for inspiration. It just shows up. This is when they write their best stories, design their best plans, and think thoughts no one else thought to think. For wolves, forcing thought during daylight hours is like trying to light a fire with wet matches. But give them the night, and they'll burn bright. And then there are dolphins, the restless thinkers, the overanalyzers, the midnight minds. Dolphins don't operate in long blocks of steady thought. Their cognitive flow is staccato, bursts of brilliance surrounded by periods of distraction or anxiety. Their peak analytical time often comes in short windows between 10 o'clock and 11:30 a.m., when they've had enough time to shake off the morning noise, but haven't yet drowned in the afternoon flood of thoughts. Their creative peak lands between 3 o'clock and 5 p.m. That's when they're more likely to enter a state of soft focus, where the mind can gently drift into new connections without pushing too hard. For dolphins, creativity is delicate. It requires the right emotional temperature, the right amount of quiet, the right pace. And when all of that aligns, they surprise even themselves with what they come up with. What Dr. Breus does here isn't just offer practical tips, he gives us back our confidence. Because so many of us think we're lazy, slow, or uninspired simply because our thinking doesn't turn on when others expect it to. But maybe we're just thinking at the wrong time. This chapter is an invitation to shift out of self-blame and into self-alignment. To stop asking, "Why can't I focus right now?" and start asking, "Is this my time to focus?" That single change in perspective can save years of frustration. It's not about doing more. It's about knowing when to do what, when to analyze, when to create, when to solve, when to think. It's also about learning how to flow through your day in a way that works for you. Maybe you write emails in your analytical peak, brainstorm in your creative window, and schedule your breaks when your brain naturally dips. Maybe you stop judging your unproductive hours and start using them for recovery, prep, or rest, so you're ready when your mind wants to think again. This is about rhythm, not rigidity, fluidity, not force. And once you get this right, once you understand your brains, when you become more than productive, you become in sync. And that's when thinking stops being a chore. It becomes a gift. A gift that arrives not when you demand it, but when you honor its time to show up. Now that you've learned when to think, the next natural question arises: when should you speak? Because timing isn't just about what happens in your mind, it's about how and when you connect with others. And that, too, follows a clock. Let's step into Chapter 16, When to Talk. Chapter 16, When to Talk. We tend to think that communication is all about content. Say the right thing, phrase it correctly, speak with clarity, and you'll be heard. But how many times have you said exactly what you meant and still been misunderstood? How often have you opened up to someone and found that your words landed flat, or worse, sparked conflict? And perhaps you've had moments where someone talked to you with all the right words, but it felt off. Like you couldn't take it in, like they caught you at the wrong moment. Because, as it turns out, communication is not just about what you say or even how you say it. It's about when you say it. Timing matters deeply. And Dr. Michael Breus uses this final chapter to explore something deceptively simple: the best time of day to talk. To really talk. To connect. To share. To be heard and understood. It makes sense, really. Our emotions, patience, clarity, and willingness to listen rise and fall with our internal clocks. Some of us are more open in the morning. Some can't string a sentence together before lunch. Some are natural debaters at noon, but can't handle tension after dinner. And every chronotype, lion, bear, wolf, dolphin, has a unique rhythm when it comes to being at their best for conversation. If you want your words to land well, if you want a tough conversation to go a little easier, or a heartfelt message to truly be felt, you have to pick the right moment. The moment when your body and mind are not just awake, but aligned. Take the lion. These early risers are at their peak performance, mentally, emotionally, and socially, first thing in the morning. If you're a lion and you need to have a serious conversation, offer feedback, make a decision, or even open your heart to someone, your best window is between 8 o'clock and 10 a.m. That's when your mind is clear, your energy high, and your focus undivided. It's your zone for thoughtful, honest, and even vulnerable conversations. But by afternoon, lions begin to fade. Their mental edge dulls, their emotional patience wears thinner, and they often become too tired to engage deeply. For them, trying to hash out something complicated in the evening is like trying to swim upstream. It's not that they don't care, it's just that they've spent their energy, and what's left is better suited for silence or simplicity. So if you're a lion, or speaking to one, make your point early, while the sun is still rising and their mind is sharp. Then, there are the bears, the great majority of people. Bears operate best in the middle of the day, and their prime communication window falls between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. That's when they've fully woken up, settled into the rhythm of the day, and aren't yet mentally depleted. Bears are natural talkers. They like connection, appreciate storytelling, and are often emotionally steady during this midday stretch. This is the time to make an ask, offer advice, or talk through something important. Bears may seem agreeable in the evening, but by then, their brains are winding down, and deep talks start to feel like heavy lifting. The morning might be too rushed or foggy, but late morning to early afternoon? That's the zone. That's when you get the best version of a bear, present, balanced, and capable of seeing your point without rushing to conclusions. And then there are wolves, those whose minds truly come alive after everyone else is already tired. Wolves are not morning people. They may be physically awake, but mentally and emotionally, they're still groggy, disoriented, maybe even irritable. The worst time to try to talk to a wolf about anything important is before noon. But come late afternoon, around 4 to 6 p.m., they begin to open up. Their energy rises, their thoughts clarify, and their emotional responses become less defensive and more thoughtful. Wolves often do their best talking in the evening, even as late as 8 o'clock or 9 p.m. That's when their brain is humming, their mood relaxed, and their words flow freely. So if you're a wolf or loved one, don't feel guilty about needing more time before you're ready to talk. Let others know your timing. Protect your mornings. And when your window arrives, show up fully, because your late-day insight can be profound, poetic, even healing. Finally, there are the dolphins, the thoughtful, anxious, sometimes scattered thinkers who tend to live in a state of mental alertness even when it's time to rest. Dolphins are not known for long, drawn-out chats. They prefer precise, well-timed exchanges, especially in the mid to late afternoon, around 3 to 5 p.m. That's when they've worked through some of the early mental noise, but haven't yet hit emotional exhaustion. Morning may be too tense, evening too draining. Dolphins need calm in order to be honest. If you're a dolphin, you may find that shorter conversations with clear emotional boundaries are best. You don't need to talk for hours. You just need to talk when you feel safe, when the noise in your head has settled enough for clarity to surface. And if you're speaking with a dolphin, try not to catch them off guard or push them into emotionally intense conversations late in the day. You'll get more connection when you wait for their clarity to bloom. And all of this brings us to a deeper truth, that timing doesn't just shape what we say, it shapes how it's received. You could deliver the same message in the morning and again at night, and the results might be completely different. Not because your words changed, but because the listener's brain was in a different state. When we don't honor timing, we talk past each other. But when we do, we build bridges. We create space not just to speak, but to be heard. This chapter doesn't just teach us how to communicate better, it teaches us how to connect more deeply, with more kindness, and with far less effort. And when you take a step back, you realize something beautiful. Everything in this book has been pointing to this idea all along. The idea that your life doesn't need to run on willpower, struggle, or noise. It can run on rhythm. Whether it's when you sleep, eat, work, exercise, think, create, love, or talk, your body already knows the right time. It's been waiting for you to listen. You don't need to be someone else. You just need to become timed right. When you do, everything, your relationships, your productivity, your health, your peace, begins to fall into place with gentle precision. This isn't about rigid schedules or becoming a robot. It's about freedom. The freedom that comes from doing things not because you're forced to, but because your body says, now is the time. That kind of living is light. It's aligned. And when you learn to live in sync with your biology, you stop chasing balance, you start becoming it. That's the power of when.